What is going on, everybody? We're here. We are live for House of the Dragon Season 2. It's finally here. Almost 2 years. Excuse me. Almost 2 years after we saw the first season of House of the Dragon, which I will admit, more than anybody else, I was skeptical. I thought that House of the Dragon was going to be a pile of shit. I thought that after how they fucked up Game of Thrones, that I was not going to be interested in going back to this world. And House of the Dragon Season 1 very much surprised me. Not only is this a story that is complete, but it's also a story that when you look at Fire and Blood, the source material, there's a lot of ambiguity to virtually everything that happens. Even the things that we think we know, it's still from the point of view of three very biased storytellers. And they could have been leaving some stuff out intentionally. They might have no idea what happened. They might be guessing. Either way, we think we know what generally happened in the story, but do we know some of the details? No, not really. And House of the Dragon started to answer some of those. And now here we are for season 2. I think one of the most highly anticipated releases of the year, at least in my opinion, the thing that I was looking forward to the most. And the first episode debuts last night. Don't know what the ratings are going to be. I imagine it's going to be something pretty good. I think we're going to see a lot of people tuned in to watch this in the first 24 hours whenever we actually get those numbers. But we're here to talk about it. We're here to break it down, look at some of these things, talk about what happened throughout the first episode. We will be getting into spoilers, but for right now, I'll just give you my general impressions of this, and then we're going to actually go through the episode and talk about it. Overall, when you take the episode as a whole, I thought it was really solid. I'm not going to say it was one of the best episodes of House of the Dragon. It's not an episode 8 or anything like that, but it was definitely on par with the rest of the first season. I thought it was good. I liked a lot of the character interactions because now you're seeing after the steps that we've taken, after Viserys is dead and Aegon is crowned and it's the Greens versus the Blacks, you're starting to see these characters interact with each other, maybe change a little bit, and setting up the big showdown that after the end of this episode is completely inevitable. Even with the death of Lucerys at the hands of Aemon and Vhagar, even with that happening, there's still a chance that if, the Greens get enough people on their side, if they really are just completely overmatching the Blacks, that Rhaenyra would probably try to avoid bloodshed and have some end of this conflict that wasn't war. Now, after the end of this episode, that is not possible. Now, if you are not someone who read the book or read the source material, you might have witnessed this last sequence in this episode and thought, oh my God, that is horrifying. Let me tell you this, for book readers, we probably felt a little bit let down by that final blood and cheese incident that occurred. And it's because what happens in the book is so dark and so horrifying, and that's what a lot of us hoped we were going to see. We didn't do that. They went a little soft on it. I don't know if most people are going to care, but I'll definitely give you my perspective. Even with that being said, I still thought the episode was really, really good and a solid start to season 2. So those are my spoiler-free. Those are my spoiler-free thoughts. It's not going to be a whole lot of spoiler-free thoughts. The rest of it, we're going to get into it. We're going to go and we're going to kind of look at the episode. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through it a little bit, give you my thoughts, and also probably a little bit of context. And I will try my best not to spoil things that happen in the future, or at least that I think will happen in the future, because as we've seen, just because it's in the source material and just because I think it played out a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to play out in this show. So I'll do my best to not spoil what's going forward, but we shall see. We shall see. Soft, in my opinion, it's the same level of violence. Well, I just don't think so. I don't think that Blood and Cheese is quite the same level of evil that we saw in the book. And when we do get all the way to the end of that, I'm going to show people that have not read the book and don't understand. I'm going to show you an animation that goes along with a narration for the Blood and Cheese story. And you can kind of decide for yourself if you think that would have been darker or not. But yes, from now on, you are warned. Spoilers. AFK Bard says, do you think they'll explain why Kingsguard was MIA at the end of the episode, or they just push past it? I have a guess about that. One is that, one of those things is that three of the King's Guard, well, four, I guess, really. They're really light on King's Guard because you had some people that went over Rhaenyra. You had Lord Commander of the King's Guard just quit and leave. So they're a little bit light. And obviously, they feel like the keep is one of the more relatively safe places. But there may have been someone who was supposed to be on watch that was doing other things instead, namely Sir Criston Cole. That's my guess. I don't know if they're going to get into it or if that's left to our imagination. But let's get started with this. We don't got all day. We already been waiting a long time for this, right? We've already been waiting a long time for this shit. My hair looks weird. Looks like I flattened it down or something. I swear I didn't. But let's go. Now, the very first thing, as soon as that intro music hits, which is the same intro music we had, we realized that we are getting a completely different intro. Now, the last one we had kind of with all of the, like, Viserys's model that he had, all these different bloodlines running through it, which was kind of made sense for season one because so much of it is about bloodlines and people being born to this person or that person and why these things matter in Westeros. This one's different. This one has given us a little bit of a history of what happened to the Targaryens before. And you do kind of see that the same model that Viserys was looking at. This is like essentially building a tapestry, right? It's art on a tapestry. And considering Helaena is so obsessed with sewing and embroidery and visions and dreams, you have to wonder if that's maybe a play on what Helaena sees. Does she see all these things? Has she dreamt about all of these things before? And what do some of these things mean? Now, this looks like a man with a dagger or a sword about to stab a woman. Don't exactly know where that's coming from. You see a Targaryen with another Targaryen dead in their arms. Then we start to see things that we really can identify when it comes to this. And I hope, among hope, that I'm not going to get hit. We're going to try to stop it and pause it enough times. But now you start to see, looks like a volcano erupting. You're looking at the Doom of Valyria right here. As you can see, you got dragons falling out of the sky. This looks like, to me, the Doom of Valyria is what they're going for in that setting. Dragons dying, a volcanoes exploding everywhere, just on fucking fire, right? Now we advance a little bit, and we can see we've got 1, 2, and 3 dragons. Now, to me, this is Aegon and his 2 sisters, Rhaenys and Visenya. The ones who came and conquered Westeros for the first time. That looks like Vhagar to me right there. That looks like Balerion. And of course, that resulted in a lot of people dying and also a lot of people bending the knee. Where do we have here? Let's go. There you go. You get some people bending the knee and saying, we will bend the knee and not get burned by the 3 heads of the dragon. And there's a little bit of King's Landing action. Now, this to me, could that potentially be Jaehaerys and Alysanne? Maybe. But you do see this is the council where they decided that Viserys would be the king. We saw that in the first episode, the first shot of season 1. So that's what this tapestry is. It's showing the history of the Targaryens up to and including now. You see someone in a green dress on one side, and you see someone in a black dress on the other side. Whoops, I should have paused a little bit earlier. But that's kind of looking at that last dinner scene we saw between Viserys and with Alicent and Rhaenyra. And obviously, you've got the green, you've got the black dress over here, all of that shit playing out in front of us. Makes me wonder, as we move on with the series, are we going to see more events that we witnessed happen in episodes 1, 2, and 3? Are we going to see some of that shit play out on this tapestry and allow it to evolve over the next little bit? You've got Aegon and you got Rhaenyra, a queen and a king. You've even got a black hand and a green hand. Black hand sending out dragons, green hand sending out ravens, like Otto Hightower is doing, sending out ravens. What else do we got? Oh, that almost leads up to the end. And then looks like, oh, poor Lucerys. And this all leads up to this vision of the throne for House of the Dragon. I think we're going to see more of those animations play out over time. I very much prefer this to the other intro we had from last year. And now finally we start. And to me, I didn't know exactly how they were going to start this thing, but they decided to start by tugging on our nostalgia strings, or our nostalgia and our heartstrings. And we get a voiceover by Cregan Stark in the north. And the first view we get is this raven flying to Winterfell. Now, this is a raven that's notifying them of the death of Prince Lucerys Velaryon, which we saw in the last episode. But I just, obviously, with the Stark music, being back in the north, looking at Winterfell, very easy for you to get caught up and not seeing that for a while. And he goes and he tells this story that I don't think we've ever necessarily really heard before, that, you know, from the first Stark, really, you have everybody that is committed to manning the wall. You've got people that are committing. I think the Stark said 1 out of every 10 men born would take the wall. And it was an honor. It was a duty. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't anything like that. It was an honor to go to the wall because we need to protect the realm. We need to protect the realm. I'm getting that I have a bad internet connection, so I hope that's okay and that's not affecting you guys too much. Should bounce back here soon. But so we get a nice sequence. My ancestor Torrhen Stark, 1 in 10 men from my household, chose to fortify the watch. And we realize as you lead up to the wall, and we get a vision of the wall for the first time in a while, 700 feet of ice, that Torrhen Stark is telling Prince Jacaerys Velaryon what exactly went down and what exactly is going on, and why the wall is so important, why he can't spare a ton of men to go and help Rhaenyra. He will. He's going to send some. He said, I send like 2,000 graybeards who have seen a lot of fighting before. And, he didn't have a problem with sending them, but he still needs to maintain his force to protect the north and to protect the realm from what's beyond the wall. And you get a good interaction between them. I forget what this actor's name is, the one who's playing Cregan Stark. They wanted you to remind you of Ned. That's what they wanted to remind you of. And I think he does a good job of that. He's got ice slung over his back. First time we've seen ice in a long fucking time. So it was cool. During this sequence, and I think all of it looks really fucking good. They didn't want to make any changes. They wanted it to remind you of the wall you saw in Game of Thrones. But we did have questions because in the book, a pact of ice and fire is made here. And nobody really understands a lot of went down to why Jacaerys and Cregan got along so well and why they made this pact of ice and fire. A lot of people speculate that it's because whether Jacaerys is knowledgeable about the secret or not, about the prophecy, about exactly what's going to go down, that they're going to need to defend the realm from what's up north, or whether Cregan really informed him of that. No one quite knows. But we get a little conversation about why they need to protect the wall. And during that, you get to see that view of the north. But during this conversation, the man delivers the message to Jacaerys that is informing them that your brother's dead. Prince Lucerys Velaryon has been killed by Aemond Targaryen and Vhagar. Very, very sad. Now, we switch to seeing Meleys. This is the Red Queen. I think that's her nickname. Meleys the Red Queen, coming back and landing on Dragonstone. She's been patrolling to help maintain this blockade that they talked about setting up, because that's what they want to do. They want to choke King's Landing of supplies. They don't want to let anybody get in or out at King's Landing right now. Dragonstone, very close to King's Landing. Something maybe a lot of people, if you're not familiar with the map, you don't know that. King's Landing and Dragonstone, very, very close together. So now you have these different powers that are very close to each other, that are all sitting there with their nukes, with their dragons kind of circling, but they're not engaging yet. And Rhaenys comes back, and I do really like this, actually. You can see Meleys is like coming up, and it's almost like there's steps for Meleys like lower so that she can let Rhaenys off. so she can let Rhaenys off at a place that makes sense, because obviously dragons are so massive. That's kind of one of the things we wonder, how do they dismount from these things? Well, you get to see a little bit of that. And she gets met immediately by Daemon. Badass Daemon fucking Targaryen, baby. All right. And he's not happy, because ever since this shit went down, he's been trying to tell people what they need to do, try to get people ready for war, telling people where they need to move, telling people what they need to do. And initially, Rhaenyra was very hesitant to do a lot of those things. Frustrating as fuck for Daemon, who knows what he's doing, who is somebody that knows what it takes in this world. There are no half measures. There's no being soft. There's none of this shit. You either do it or it gets done to you. And he knows they have to move fast. He knows they have to move with vengeance. And Rhaenyra is not there because she's out searching for Lucerys. And Daemon's like, hey, get back on your fucking dragon. Let's go out. Let's go to King's Landing. Let's kill Vhagar. Right now, let's kill Vhagar. Let's take that old salty bitch out. We'll kill Aemon. We'll kill Vhagar. And this war is going to be over. If we can take out Vhagar, they really don't have any legs left to stand on. So he wants to take Caraxes, his dragon, little fucking worm, and Meleys and Rhaenys to go kill Vhagar together. Rhaenys says, listen, I just got back. He needs to eat. I need to rest. I've been on patrol like almost constantly trying to keep this blockade. They have a back and forth, and Daemon's essentially trying to tell her what to do. And Rhaenys is saying, it's the queen's decision, not yours. He's saying the queen's absent. She's out there in her grief. Her mother's grief is making her not do her duty as queen right now. We have to take action. Rhaenys kind of refuses and says, I'm not going to take orders from you. You're not the king. So go fuck off. But Daemon does have a really good point, in that Rhaenyra, in her grief, she's not there. Like, these first couple days with what's going on, I know they're very important. The war could be won or lost very easily within these next couple days. And Rhaenys essentially says, listen, when I found out my daughter was dead, I didn't know. I was lost. And until I saw her body, doesn't matter what a raven said, doesn't matter what somebody told me, until I saw her body, I was not able to really start to deal with that and get past it. That's what Rhaenyra is trying to do. She's been told by a raven that her son is dead, but she needs to see it for herself. What else do we got here? Now we're going to this next shot. We've got Rhaenyra. We've got Queen Rhaenyra out by herself in the world, which is kind of dangerous as it is. What if Vhagar just happens upon them? You know, that is a possibility. She's got Syrax, but Syrax is not Vhagar. She would get destroyed if Vhagar happened upon them. But there she is, looking out at Storm's End, Shipbreaker Bay, where she's been told that her son and his dragon, Arax, have been killed. She's obviously not happy. Doesn't look the best right now. Doesn't really look like she's been taking care of herself. But that's her trying to find her son. Now we go down to the docks. And this guy's sweeping up blood or some shit. And we've got Corlys Velaryon. Corlys, who was hurt, if you remember, and almost died because of an injury he sustained at sea, had to get pulled back on. They weren't sure if he was going to live or not. That's why we had the entire thing that went down about who his heir would be, when his brother tried to essentially say they're fucking bastards. They don't deserve it. Rhaenyra's children are bastards, blah, blah, blah. Well, Corlys is back on his feet. He's going down to the docks. And I got to say, I was really surprised that we get introduced to this guy. This guy's name is Alan. No last name as of yet. We'll find out a little bit more about him later. This is a super important person in this story. Book readers, obviously, as soon as you saw Alan, you know it's a big deal. This is Alan of Hull. And he has a discussion with Corlys because apparently Alan is the one that pulled him out of the water and saved him when he was injured. So he does feel like he owes him his life. You get the sense that there's more to this relationship already. This is going to be a spoiler, a potential spoiler going forward for people. So I'm just warning you right now, next 30 seconds or so. There is speculation in the book. Alan of Hull is a very important player. And there is speculation in the book that he's actually a bastard son of Laenor. I never bought that because everybody and their fucking mother knows that Laenor's gay. How does he have a bastard child? I've always had suspicions that either it was Corlys's bastard or just a random bastard that somebody else spawned, right? The age of him compared to the age of Corlys, like, feels like my theory that I've always had. I feel like that's getting more and more likely, especially considering there seems to be something unspoken. Maybe not that Corlys knows, but maybe that Alan knows. Who knows? But even, and what he does, he gives, let's see if I can find this. Let me see. Oh, here it is. He gives, see if I can find this shit. Alan gives Corlys a dagger that had been delivered, and he had this dagger made for Lucerys, who's now died, which is just kind of heartbreaking. One of the interesting things about this series is you have such this weird dynamic between the Greens and the Blacks. The Greens, it feels like they all fucking hate each other, right? It feels like Otto doesn't give a fuck about Alicent and has just used her time after time for his schemes. It feels like Alicent isn't really as like loving and caring towards her children as you would expect a mother to be, and is almost exasperated at times by her children, specifically by Aegon and by Aemond. Whereas on the Black side, you have this very dysfunctional family and a family full of illegitimate children that are pretending that they're not illegitimate when you look at Rhaenyra's children. But there's a lot of love and a lot of actual dedication between them. And even for Corlys, who knows, despite him denying it, Corlys knows without a shadow of a doubt, Lucerys is not actually his blood. He knows that. He's not blind. He's not stupid. He understands that. Yet, nevertheless, he's grieving this grandson that he lost in Lucerys. And it's truly who he wanted to. He was fine with him being the heir to Driftmark. That's who he wanted to take it on. And so it's just an interesting thing to see the dynamics between the Blacks and their dysfunction, but very close, like love for each other, and the Greens with their dysfunction and almost a hatred of each other. But anyway, he does say, I was very sorry to hear about your heir's death, not your grandson's death, your heir's death, which I don't know. Interesting. I don't know if they intentionally phrased it that way, but obviously you leave this scene thinking that Alan is a little more than meets the eye, and he is going to be a player later on, as well as his brother Adam, who he mentions. Now we go back to King's Landing. We go back to King's Landing to see what the Greens are up to, and we get this sequence here. Now this is Sir Auric. You got the twins in the King's Guard, Sir Auric and Sir Eric. All right. They're tough for me to keep straight because they're so fucking close on their twins. But obviously one of them, Sir Eric, I believe, which starts with an E. Sir Auric starts with an A. Auric is right here. He is Team Green. Eric is on Dragonstone with Rhaenyra. But obviously, it's a different world in King's Landing now, because before, dragons were not a threat to King's Landing. Dragons were, part of the protection of King's Landing. Now dragons could mean dangerous things if you spot them on the horizon coming towards King's Landing. And you can see immediately that there's now scorpions on the wall. We get to see the scorpions again. And this is not something that was just invented for Game of Thrones, despite maybe people getting that impression from the show itself. Qyburn was not the first person to like invent a scorpion or some shit like that. Scorpions had been used in the past. They had been used to kill Rhaenys dragon. I forget what that dragon's name was. But in Dorne, it killed Rhaenys dragon all the way back in the days of King Aegon I. So this is a known way that dragons could potentially be vulnerable with these scorpions. So now they're starting to get scorpions out there on the walls of King's Landing. And anytime you can see they're yelling dragon right here. And they look in the sky, and sure as shit, there's a fucking dragon. Arm the scorpion. Trying to actually get to it without getting copyright struck. Would it kill them to make their names completely different? It fucking would. I can't stand some of the names. And it's Vhagar. So you can see they just saw a dragon. Once it got close enough for them to recognize that it's old ass Vhagar, they're like, all right, stand down. It's one of ours. And you can just see how massive Vhagar looks in the sky. I love the holes in her wings. I just think it's a really good touch. It was a good touch in the first one, obviously. Vhagar remains the same in this one. But look at that wingspan. Look at that wingspan. Now we get a sequence with the new queen, because Helena is now the queen. And Aegon is coming in to find Jaehaerys. Now, Jaehaerys is one of his children. Jaehaerys and Rhaenyra, twins. Jaehaerys, his firstborn son and his heir now that he's king. And I actually think this is an interesting scene. Aegon feels way different than he felt last season. Aegon is somebody who never thought he was going to be king, never wanted to be king. He just wanted to get drunk and whore around and shit. Sounds kind of like a good life to me, if I'm being honest. And then this thing gets thrust upon him that he doesn't want. However, the one thing that Aegon has always wanted is to be loved and appreciated. It's something that he never felt from his parents, specifically Viserys, who almost ignored him. Something he doesn't feel like he gets from his mother or his grandfather or anyone like that. But when he goes up there in the dragon pit, they crown him king, and he holds Blackfire up, the sword of the fucking conqueror, with the crown of the conqueror. He holds that shit up, and everyone cheers for him. He's like, I like this. These people like me. For the first time in my life, there's people that like fucking love me. That's fucking wild. And it feels like he wants to keep that going in this episode. And he's asking for Jaehaerys because he wants to take his son and take him to the small council meeting and help him learn how to be king someday. And you can kind of like get the feeling that, man, Aegon wants to do what his dad never did for him. Obviously, Rhaenyra did that with Viserys, but Viserys never showed any interest in having Aegon, learn how to rule, because it was never going to be a possibility in his mind. As a result, Aegon has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to ruling. Now, Helena's just sitting there being a weirdo. As we've stated, and you've probably picked up on, she's like coded as autistic, right? She's a dreamer. She sees things. She says things that people don't really understand, but she's saying things that she sees happening. Now, either things that have happened or things that will happen. You're not quite sure which is which, but she's getting visions, she's getting dreams, but she's so socially awkward and weird and basically autistic that a lot of people don't give her the time of day, even when, what she's telling them is true, at least from what she's experiencing at the time. And she's like, hey, don't disrupt his day. Don't disrupt what he's doing. And he's like, Helena, please just tell me where he is. I want to teach my son how to be a ruler. Not asshole Aegon, which is nice. But then you get this. I'll play a little bit of this audio. As he's walking out the door, you get this.
I'm afraid.
Don't be. They'd be fools to come with Vhagar protecting the city.
Now, it's not Vhagar, or it's not dragons. It's not the blacks that she's scared of, at least not quite in that way.
Not the dragons. The rats.
Not the dragons, the rats. That is very much foreshadowing. We heard last season her talking about the beasts beneath the board, maybe talking about rats as well. I love this. Look at this fucking reaction from everybody in the room, including Aegon. Everyone's like, yeah, the queen's kind of a fucking crazy bitch.
The queen is an enduring mystery. Is she not?
And Aegon just tries to brush it off a little bit, which I think is good. I've seen a couple super chats. Let me catch up with these real quick before we go. Let's see. Game on. Sports news and picks for 20. My wife asked if this episode would be okay for a 14-year-old to be in the room while it's on. I say, sure. It should be all violence. Should have known HBO would throw in some adult content. Yeah, I mean, it's Game of Thrones. There's going to be, some sex in it. And I wouldn't say that, like, this sex in this episode is not, like, you don't see any nudity or anything. But, yeah, there's sex in the episode. Cobus Jobert. Fuck Dave Filoni. I agree. Greer from Gilead. Gilead. Do you think we'll see Grey Ghost in this series? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think they're going to include some stuff that we wouldn't expect, but I don't know. Do you think they'll ever explain Night King, First Men, Children of the Forest? Isn't there always a three-eyed raven? Where's he at? I don't know. I hope they don't get into Night King, Children of the Forest. I don't think they need to do that for this series. If you're talking about ever, I don't think there actually is a Night King. Like an actual just soul person, Night King. I think that was a show thing. So I don't know if we're ever going to get that explanation. Breezy's Comics and Collectibles for 5. How do we explain Ned not knowing about the real purpose of the wall? Maybe because he wasn't supposed to be Lord. Anyway, love this episode. Well, that's very true, right? Ned was never supposed to be Lord of Winterfell. Never thought that would happen to him, right? his brother and his father go down and get killed by the Mad King. So when it comes to these things like that are kind of passed down person to person, you can certainly justify some people losing track of what happened, including the Targaryen prophecy on that dagger. You can easily see with the type of things that we've seen happen, whether it's Maegor and Aenys, throughout the Targaryen rule, where it would be easy for that dream, that vision, that prophecy, that purpose that they have to get lost because of the way the succession works. And I would imagine that by the time we get to the end of the series and what ends up happening to Rhaenyra, it may be that is done being passed down. So yeah. But that's just all speculation from me. That's all speculation from me. But let's continue on. Oh shit, I don't want to play the sound effects. So this is where we get to the sex scene. Our first shot of Alicent Hightower. Alicent, who's always fucking judging everybody for, their lapse in morals, and Rhaenyra, it's no fair that Rhaenyra gets to do this. Rhaenyra gets to fuck all these people and no consequences. Well, what is Alicent doing? Right as we start, she's getting her pussy eaten out by Criston Cole. Now listen, girls want to get laid, girls want to get their pussies wet, and go for it. And if you're a dude, you want to eat some pussy, highly recommend it. But it's with Criston Cole. Criston Cole, the Lord Commander of the Knights Guard, like sworn to be chaste, sworn to not have sex, right? Criston Cole and Alicent are getting it on. Okay? Someone says, did Alicent do stuff with Larys Strong in season 1? Now, she took off her shoes and let Larys jerk off to her feet. I don't know if that's maybe a little bit of lapse in moral judgment or whatever, but obviously that's not the same as actually having a sex act with someone. But that's what's going down. So Criston Cole, the dude who was pissed off that Rhaenyra just wanted to use him for sex and that made him break his code, all this shit. Now he's doing the exact same thing with Alicent. And you know what makes it even better about this scene? Is that, let's see what I can find. This is in Rhaenyra's old room. Now, I didn't recognize it when I first watched through. I saw some behind the scenes stuff. This is Rhaenyra's old room in King's Landing. This is the room where Rhaenyra lost her virginity to Criston Cole. And now Criston Cole is breaking his vows once again to fuck Alicent Hightower, who isn't married anymore, but still should not be having sex, especially not with a Knight's Guard, or with a King's Guard. Like, this bitch is one of the biggest hypocrites now in the show with just this moment. And there are questions as when did this started, how long it's been going on. They have an interaction where, like, this seems completely fucking normal for them. And she tells him, hey, we can't do this again. And he's like, all right, whatever you say, my queen. He's probably heard that a lot from her, if I'm guessing. And, they're all getting dressed again. And now they're talking about summer, or they're talking about the weather. This is so casual for them to have sex like this in the middle of the day that they're talking about the weather. Summer is well and truly through. Shit like this. And then we have this scene right here.
We cannot. Again.
Yes, Your Grace.
I imagine he said that a couple times, all right? I imagine he said that a couple times. Now, I love this sequence because the same white cloak that he folded up when he fucked Rhaenyra and broke his vows for the first time is sitting there. And he has Alicent, the person who has disgraced him, put on his cloak. The white cloak, the symbol of purity, the symbol of he's going to be remaining chaste, that he's going to devote his life, everything to the king or queen. And this is what we get. Alicent the hypocrite, who is so judgmental of Rhaenyra. Now we see you as you truly are. Okay? You're a fucking hypocrite. You want to pretend that you really care about your religion, that you really care about your morals. You're always trying to do the right thing. This is what you're doing behind closed doors. And how long has this been going on is a very, very good question to ask. We got to show this part too. Hold on. Want to make sure he looks nice, you know. Can't have him looking all ruffled. Even though his face probably smells like Allison's pussy. Now we get this. We get a dog. Look at this dog. Look at this little pupper and a rat catcher. I wonder if this is going to come into play later. I wonder if this guy is going to come into play later on in this episode, huh? You wonder. Now they walk into the small council meeting, and we got to see. I got to see if we get the sequence where Kristen Cole walks by Otto. I think we do. Look at the look Otto gives Kristen Cole. Otto knows shit's going on with Kristen Cole and his daughter. I fucking know he knows. He probably smells Allison's vagina as he's walking by. But we get a little view of the small council. They're talking about war. They're talking about Otto saying they sent out a bunch of ravens. Aegon is pissed. He just wants to take Sunfire and Vhagar and end them. Just kill everybody, be over with it. But one of the interesting dilemmas that they run into, and that's going to be the same throughout the series, is yes, you have these nuclear bombs that fly, right? You have these nuclear bombs that are dragons that are controlled by the different people on the greens and on the blacks. But unfortunately, it's not as simple as just launching a weapon, because Vhagar, the biggest nuclear bomb in the world, the oldest living dragon, the most powerful dragon, Vhagar's not just a bomb, but she's also a shield. Because if you send Vhagar somewhere else, it leaves King's Landing open to attack. If Vhagar's continuing to patrol King's Landing, then you know that anybody that comes to attack them, they're likely not going to get by Vhagar because of how powerful she is. So it's a conundrum, right? We can't really send Vhagar out. We can't send our most powerful weapon out because we need her as a shield to make sure that they don't just come wipe everybody out. And the blacks are going to find themselves in similar circumstances. Though they have more dragons, they don't have ones that are as powerful as Vhagar, and that will be a problem going forward. Now, this is Aegon, who doesn't really understand how a lot of this politicking works. He has never trained for this. His dad never cared enough to train him for it. And Otto is trying to tell him to remain patient. Let's get ravens back from all these people that I'm talking to. We're gathering our forces. We know the Riverlands are going to be important to this entire thing. But Aegon really kind of impatient. Is more just laughing as his son is fucking around with Tywin Lannister. Now, Tywin Lannister, the second son of the twins of Lannister, he's going to be very important potentially near the end of this series. So it's interesting to see him now and how he's being treated now compared to how important he's going to be a little bit later on. But he's like fucking with his little ball that they use for when they speak, when they like are in attendance. And it's kind of a dumb little back and forth between Jaehaerys and Tywin. And it looked like for a second that Aegon was going to make him ride Tywin like a pony. But hey, is the heir to the throne bothering you, Tywin? Like that. But he doesn't. He's not as maniacal as some people thought he would be. That's a pretty good screenshot, though. Allison kind of talks him down. But ultimately, there's a lot of tension over what they should do. A lot of people think they should strike now while the iron's hot. Otto is saying, we fucked up a lot. A lot of fucking mistakes were made in the hours following Viserys' death. If we'd stuck to my plan, everything would be fine. I wanted to go and kill all those motherfuckers and be done with it. But now we're in a standoff. And because Aemond killed Lucerys, it really puts us in a bad position. And you got to understand, if the Greens can get enough people on their side, like even with all the anger that Rhaenyra has, even with their dragons, even with all this shit, if they can get everybody on their side, if they can get the North, the Vale, the Riverlands, if they can get everybody on their side before conflict really starts and have them pledge themselves to Aegon, then they don't actually have to go to war. So despite Lucerys being killed, there is still an outside shot to remedy this without all-out war and a mass amount of bloodshed. And that's what a lot of these people are going towards right now. Right here, this is where Otto says that shit. See if we can listen here.
Blockade has placed King's Landing under strain, and those pressures will multiply quickly.
Well, we should have just killed her when we had the chance.
We should have just killed her when we had the chance. And that was Otto's plan. That's what Otto wanted to do.
Regrettably, the opportunity for surprise has been lost. and with it the chance to end this conflict quickly. Board before us.
If we are to break this,
Essentially implying that, yeah, a lot of mistakes were made. We should have fucking done it my way in the first place. And now, Aemond comes walking in.
Aemond, what is your business here?
The king summoned me.
You do not have a seat at this council.
Aemond is my closest blood and our best sword. I welcome him.
And Aemond, listen, you know that Aemond just wants to be Daemon. There's a lot of similarities between Daemon and Aemond Targaryen. But what he's about to say here really reminds you of that.
Path to King's Landing is through the Riverlands. We must establish a toehold there. At Harrenhal.
The River Lords will lie.
So his plan is exactly what Daemon wanted to do last episode, the end of season 1. He wanted to go to Harrenhal, immediately take over, make them bend the knee, and establish that foothold in the Riverlands. Harrenhal would be the perfect place to do it. So the thing that Daemon wants to do, and he's mad that Rhaenyra is still off fucking around, that he can't do yet, that's what Aemond also wants to do, because they both know the strategy that has to go into play right here, which is funny to see the similarities between both of them. I want to see now. They are talking about, again, explaining why we can't just send Vhagar out, why we can't just send Sunfire out. We can't risk you, my king. We can't let you go out there on Sunfire, and we also can't afford to let Vhagar leave the city, or else we'll be open to attack. I like this part, though.
Your Grace, you must not put yourself at risk.
And Vhagar is needed here to deter Rhaenyra from attacking, in retribution for the death of her son.
Now, of course, looking directly at Aemond, who's responsible for the death of Lucerys. Now, my question that we didn't get an answer to in this episode, and I think intentionally so, we don't know what everyone else thinks happened. We know from watching it play out that it was an accident, that Luke lost control of his dragon, that Aemond lost control of Vhagar, and it ended up with Luke and Arax dying in the jaws of fucking big-ass Vhagar. But what did Aemond tell everybody that happened? I guess, based on what we know about Aemond, there's no way in hell that Aemond would tell anyone that he lost control of Vhagar. Don't see it happening. I think that Aemond would, in all likelihood, walk in and say, I fucking killed the little cunt. He took my eye, got what he deserved, blah, blah, blah. I've killed one of their dragons. I've killed one of their heirs. Fuck them. I think that's what Aemond came back and said. He certainly doesn't look remorseful. Certainly doesn't feel like he made any mistakes, right? The look that Alicent gave him doesn't look like she thinks it was an accident what happened. And again, the parallels between Aemond and Daemon, we've seen Daemon do similar things. When Daemon gets accused of something that makes him look like an asshole or makes him look mean, that makes him look badass, or whatever it may be, right? He will often just go along with that lie, just like he went along with the lie that he had sex with Rhaenyra. Now, there are ulterior motives to that as well, potentially trying to get Viserys to marry her off to him. So he went in with that lie. But it's a common thing we've seen happen. When someone accuses him of something, even if he didn't do it, he's not going to deny it. He'll play into it because he wants people to be afraid of him. I wouldn't be surprised if Aemon's doing the same exact thing right here. Wouldn't be surprised. Now, in the aftermath of this, we get a conversation between Larys Strong and Alicent. And just like I said, I'm pretty sure Otto knows that Kristen Cole and Alicent are fucking. I'm pretty sure Larys Strong knows too.
Good morning, Your Grace.
Good morrow, Lord Larys.
Because of this line that they're about to utter right here.
I had come earlier to have a word before the small council convened, but your handmaiden said that you were indisposed.
Indisposed. I wonder what that could mean. Now, they have a conversation about Larys making sure that all the servants there are loyal to them, that there's nobody that's going to betray them, things like that, implying that maybe he locked them up or killed them or tortured them to figure out which ones were loyal, which ones weren't. Not exactly sure, but obviously Larys Strong always has his own motivations for doing things, which sometimes seem counterintuitive to what we think he would want. we don't really know what Larys's angle is in all of this. We've seen him play Alicent. We've seen him play Otto off Alicent. We're about to see him play Aegon as well in this episode. I've chosen to use staff personally. She probably doesn't feel too comfortable with that. Now her staff is giving her a bath after what probably in her mind feels like she's done something dirty. And you see her want to clean herself and tell them to get the fuck out of here. She wants to give herself a bath. Now, whether this is her not trusting them, whether this is her feeling like she's dirty and needs to be clean after once again doing what she did with Kristen Cole that she clearly knows should stop happening, but is probably not going to actually let it stop. Now, Rhaenyra sees as some people are pulling a net over and they find a dragon wing and they find something else potentially in there. She hops on Syrax and comes down. Now, it is cool to just see, again, anytime a dragon does anything, it feels like the young people, or not the young people, it feels like the small people get fucked over, right? Anytime dragons are involved, they're clumsy, they break shit, they do collateral damage. Oftentimes, small people are in the way, and who cares? We do see her jump off this dragon. Now, I will say, I don't think we've ever seen in this series someone dismount a dragon. And I think there's a reason. I think the CGI is a little wonky there. There's going to be a lot of CGI in this series because of all the fucking dragons. I think it's fair to be critical of this, though, because it is a little bit wonky. When you see her get off Syrax and run to go see if she can find any evidence of Luke. And she finds his cloak along with the remains of Arax, the dragon. And she's sad. She's pretty upset. And one of the things I think they're going to play into a lot in this series, even more so in this season than they did last season, is the connection that dragon riders have with their dragons, the bond that exists between dragon rider and dragon. We saw with Daemon when he got shot in the shoulder last season that Caraxes screamed. We saw what was going on between Rhaenyra and Syrax when she was in labor and she was in pain and she was getting through, like, she had just been notified of the death of her father, like all that shit. We saw Syrax also crying out in pain. Well, once again, we see Syrax in the background as Rhaenyra is breaking down when she confirms the loss of her son. And it's a little bit of a double meaning here. See if you can see. I want to hear the dragon cry. That's what I want to hear. Pause it so we don't get hit for copyright. HBO, Warner Brothers. Now, interestingly enough, not only is Syrax, we don't know if he's like mourning or feels the pain that Rhaenyra is feeling at the time, but interestingly enough, as Rhaenyra is mourning the loss of her child, Arax was actually it hatched from an egg from Syrax. So it's actually Syrax's, child as well that is sitting there with one of their wings torn off. Who knows if dragons know enough to feel things like that, but interesting that they included it. Now you got Aegon coming in. Aegon the Magnanimous, they call him. That's what his buddies call him when they announce him to the world. Aegon the Magnanimous, the person who is very kind and forgiving even to those that are beneath him or his enemies, things like that. Aegon the Magnanimous. This is somebody who really wants to be liked by the small folk. And we see that play out in this as he sits the Iron Throne. And you have someone approach who is basically coming to say, my king, I'm really sorry. And he's very nervous. And Aegon is like, hey, it's all right. It's all right, buddy. I'm here to help. I'm your king. You don't have to worry about it. Don't be scared. Just talk to me. And a very different Aegon, right, than we saw in the first season. But he wants to be liked by all these people. And this guy comes and he says, hey, a tenth of my sheep have been taken before the winter. I'm not going to be able to survive. I can't do this. I know that you guys need to fund your war, but I need my sheep. I'm not going to be able to live. And Aegon's like, oh, well, no problem. We'll take care of you, make you whole. We'll give you your sheep back. Everything will be fine. And Otto's like, No, we can't exactly do that.
And them.
He says we should return
Your
them.
Grace?
You need your goats for the winter, don't you?
Sheep, your Grace.
Sheep, even better.
Otto comes up and he's like, hey, Your Grace, I know you're a dumb motherfucker who has no idea what he's doing, but we can't just do that. We need these sheep. We need to tax people for the war effort. That's how wars work. I know you don't know anything about politics, but that's how war works.
I shall make your flock of sheep whole.
We already made a promise to all the crown lands that a tithing of livestock would be necessary
To sustain the dragons. And Aegon's like, well, couldn't we just return the sheep to him? Nobody else will have to know. We don't have to do it for everybody. Otto's like, no. When the king speaks, everyone listens. You can't just do something like that. It's not possible. And he walks away.
After further thought, I have decided that I cannot restore your sheep. If war...
Right. What he wants him to do. Very upsetting for him. He was also like telling them his plans for everything. He's like, my plan is to send Vhagar down there to burn him. Don't worry, this war's not going to last long. Then we get introduced to this guy right here.
The Smiths are all proud.
I got to get his name as introduction for you.
Hugh, Your Grace.
Now, this man's name is Hugh. He's also going to play a role in things to come. Hard Hugh Hammer. That's who this guy is. And he will play a role later. Right now, he's on the side of the Greens. He's a blacksmith. And he's essentially saying, listen, we're honored to work for you and defend the crown and everything like this. But it's expensive building all these weapons, especially the Scorpions. It takes a long time. It's draining our reserves. We don't have the money for this. We can't continue to do this. If you would give us some money up front, then, maybe that would help. It would bring great relief to us. Aegon, after just being chastised by Otto saying you can't give people everything they want, he does this.
I'm paid well. My army cannot win a war without your weapons. You should continue their making.
You'll be paid well. You're going to continue. Otto's coming up to tell him, Your Grace, we don't have a ton of money. Like, we don't have unlimited resources. We need to do this, like, right now for the war effort. We can't just pay everybody everything they want all at the same time. He sees him walking up. He tells him something that he knows Otto can't stop him from saying.
Our victory depends on the efforts of the small folk.
You have my most sincere gratitude, Your Grace.
And Otto knows there's no way that he can sit there and tell him not to say something like that with all these people in front. And this is, to me, I think this is a big part of what Aegon's journey is going to be about this season. He really wants to be liked. He wants to be loved. He sees it. He never got it from his family. He's never got it from his grandfather, who thinks he's a piece of shit. He's never got it from his mother, and he certainly didn't get it from King Viserys. So Aegon desperately wants to be liked by everybody, like the people, his people. He saw cheering him on in the Dragon Pit. And that's why you see him go to those efforts and why you see what he said right there to Hugh Hammer. Now, set up Laura Strong talking to Aegon. Laura Strong says, hey, can I have a word, Your Grace? I've just noticed that, Otto, he's been a hand to three kings now. The old king, your father, and now you. Really has his own motivations, doesn't he? Haven't you ever noticed that he's always pushing back at you? Haven't you ever noticed? And it's just Laura's trying to put this divide between Aegon and Otto. And it will work. It will work. Aegon is already resenting how Otto wants to be so slow and conservative when it comes to let's just send the Ravens out and wait for them to come back, right? That type of thing. And, he's just reminding him his grandfather seems to have his own agenda at play. Now we get a scene between Otto and Alicent, where they kind of discuss some of the errors that were made. Otto reminds her once again, if we'd done everything my way, we wouldn't be in this fucking position. But as it sits, we're in this position, and we have to do what we can and try to stop this thing before there's too much bloodshed. Alicent is mad that Otto seems to be undermining her at almost every point in time, because to her, she really needs her children to continue to listen to her, to control them. She needs Aegon to listen to her. She needs Aemon to listen to her. Otherwise, if they're left to their own devices, things might not go so well. And she's right. Things might not go so well. Now, the blockade is working. You see some Velaryon ships. You see the seahorse right there. So that's the symbol of House Velaryon. Corlys Velaryon, all those guys. Excuse me. They stop a ship because they got the blockade going. They search for stowaways. And Sir Eric of the Knight's Guard, Rhaenyra's Knight's Guard, finds the White Worm, Lady Massaria, who's brought to Daemon. Daemon is not fucking happy because if you remember, Massaria in the last season, she's the one that found Aegon. She's the one that hid Aegon away. She's the one that essentially held him ransom before the High Towers were able to get to him. She wanted the children to stop being beaten in the streets and the cage fights, blah, 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 all this shit. They have a conversation. Damon's like, why the fuck would you do that? You're selling secrets to the High Towers. She says, I'll pay anybody, or anybody who pays me, I'll sell secrets to. It's not like it's a coincidence. It's not like you should be surprised by that. Like I should have some loyalty to you. Did you ever really do right by me that you think you deserve that type of loyalty? But Damon's fucking pissed because Daemon knows, as well as everyone else, that if she had just maybe told him or kept Aegon hiding or killed him, this entire thing would be fucking over. Not really a realistic thing for Daemon to think at the time that she would be that necessarily loyal to him for those reasons. But nevertheless, Daemon is fucking pissed and wants her moved to the cells. He has a conversation with Sir Eric that's essentially then blaming him. He's like, what about you, motherfucker? You who could have slit Aegon's throat right there and ended this entire thing, who didn't have to let this go down. And Sir Eric's like, listen, it was shameful for me that I was put in that position to have to go get Aegon with the knowledge that they were going to usurp Rhaenyra, but it's why I left. It's why I came here to serve Rhaenyra. I didn't like what I was doing, but I am bound by oath to protect the entire royal family. I couldn't have just slit Aegon's throat like Daemon would have wanted him to do. And he brings up his traitor brother, your traitorous twin, who will definitely play a role. Those two will play a role in this season that is going to be probably heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Where am I? Oh, Rhaenyra has just returned after finding Luke. I should say, I don't know if I said it earlier, the conversation that Rhaenys and Daemon have immediately, Daemon also reminds her, this is Daemon's entire thing. He's very frustrated right now because he's not allowed to do to take the actions he wants to take. Seemingly everyone around him is too scared or too moral to do what he thinks needs to be done in order to put an end to this war, maybe before it even started. And he had the same conversation with Rhaenys. You were there at the Dragon Pit. You could have ended their entire fucking line and you didn't. And she said, that wasn't my word to start, blah, blah, blah. But he once again reminded her that it could have been a big tactical mistake. Rhaenyra walks in, gets announced, has this small conversation with Daemon. And as much as we've seen Daemon be a hard ass and an asshole, he does have this little loving moment with Rhaenyra asking if she finds what she needed. Did you find, Luke? Did you find what you needed? She kind of nods. Rhaenyra only has a couple words, one line in this entire episode, and it's right here.
I want Aemond Targaryen.
That's it. She walks in, she gets briefed on all the things they're doing, all the things they need to do for the war. That's her only statement. I want Aemond Targaryen. Someone says Daemon seems too whiny. He's not whiny. He's fucking frustrated. Because, again, one thing you're going to find out if you've not read the source here or whatever, when women or soft men are in power and they're not willing to do what it takes in this world of Westeros, in this world of ice and fire, right? When women give in to their motherly sensibilities, or when soft men are ruling and not willing to do what it takes, bad things fucking happen. Not just to them, but to everyone else. Otto is someone that recognizes that. Daemon is someone that recognizes that. And that's why Daemon's so frustrated right now, because he feels like he's surrounded by people that aren't willing to do what it takes. Doesn't necessarily mean that Daemon's choices are always going to be the most wise or work out well, but he does know what it takes, which is why he's frustrated with everyone else around him. Now, Daemon, here's to say, I want Aemon Targaryen. Daemon immediately goes back to Mysaria and says, hey, you know a lot of people. You have a lot of different lines of communication. Do you know anybody that might, know their way around the fucking castle? That's what Daemon wants to know. And there's a reason for that we'll get to. This scene right here is probably just, this is probably my favorite scene of this episode. Because it's Jacaerys returning from the wall, or from the north. Jacaerys returning to give his report to his mother, the queen. The heir to the throne, Jacaerys, who we've seen so often. Let's actually get him on screen. We've seen that Jacaerys cares so much about doing everything the right way, about learning the tongue of his ancestors, about learning everything he needs to know to run the realm, to be a good king. All of these things. He's so dedicated, so loyal. He is what everyone would want in an heir and in a king. Unfortunately, the throne really shouldn't be his, because he's a bastard. Because Rhaenyra fucked around. Rhaenyra fucked around out of wedlock, had an affair, and he's a bastard. So despite this boy being one of the truly good-hearted, moral people, a perfect example to everyone of what an heir should be, by blood, he shouldn't have it. And one of the things we learn in this world of A Song of Ice and Fire is typically these types of people, they don't do well. They don't last long. They don't usually have happy endings. But this sequence right here, I think, is probably the most emotional in the opening. And that's, obviously we had an ending sequence too that's pretty crazy. But to me, this is the most emotional scene we've had in this episode.
Your Grace. Lady Jane Arryn has pledged her support.
You can kind of hear his voice breaking a little bit. He did go to the Arryns to get their support. So that's where he went before he went to Winterfell.
In exchange for a dragon to guard the Vale. And Lord Cragen Stark has promised.
I'm trying not to get hit by copyright. I wish I could just let this play.
2,000 men.
And he's just like, he's trying to be the heir. He's trying to keep his emotions under control. He's trying to do his duty and report to his queen and his mother, everything that he's done. But at the end of the day, his brother just died. And Rhaenyra doesn't say anything. Again, Rhaenyra has one line in this entire episode. I want Aemon Targaryen. But I just think it's a really good moment before them. Or I just think it's a really good moment between them. And like I said, the blacks are so much different than the greens in terms of, although they have their dysfunction, they have their fucked up things, they really do care about each other. They care about each other on a personal level, on a family level. They are a family, not just by blood or whatever. They're a fucking family. Whereas the greens despise each other. The greens are constantly plotting against each other. They fucking hate, everybody hates each other when it comes to the greens. But anyway, now we see Alicent, who, after doing all this immoral shit, fucking Kristen Cole, blah, 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 she's going down to pray. And she's lighting candles for the dead. She mentions her mother who passed away. She mentions Viserys who passed away. And as this is happening, we're seeing a different funeral scene. Again, a funeral sequence. And this time it's for Luke, and they don't have a body to bury. But you've got Corlys, you've got Rhaenys, you've got Baela and Rhaena. They're on one side. And Alicent's down there lighting candles for the dead. You see Rhaenyra and her children. There's Jace throwing in some stuff. And there's little, oh, this is rough, man. You've got little Joffrey, who has the toy that Luke used to have. And Joffrey throws that in the flames too. And as all of this is happening, as Alicent's lighting candles for the dead and, you know, doing her prayers, she's got one last candle to light. Fucking copyright. Gotta pause it. It's really, this drags out a little bit. Not to say the scene drags out, but for me trying to play it right here, it's dragging out. I thought the scene was really good. Don't fucking get me, Warner Brothers. She lights a candle for Lucerys. And at the end of the day, Alicent this is not what Alicent wanted to happen. And despite all the hypocrisy that we now know about her, fucking Kristen Cole, all this shit, despite all that, this is not something that she ever truly wanted to happen. She didn't want Rhaenyra's children to die. She didn't want harm to come to Rhaenyra. She never wanted any of that. And she fought against that, in fact. And nevertheless, it came to fruition. So you do see that there is a lot of actual regret and remorse that things went down the way they did. Solar Dragon, this scene's well done, makes me even more. I'll get to that. And listen, if you don't understand that Helena's clearly being viewed to be a socially awkward autistic person who doesn't respond to things like a normal person, I don't know what to tell you. You haven't been paying attention to the show, but we'll get into it. Another sad sequence. Now, we're going to King's Landing at dark. Wonder what could be happening here. Who could it be? Who could it possibly be? Oh, shit. Daemon in a hood. I saw a lot of memes last night about as soon as you see Daemon put his hood up, you know that some bad shit's about to happen. I think was it Glidus who deemed it the up to no good hood? When you see Daemon in a hood, you know some bad shit's gonna happen about 10 minutes later. There's a lot of memes like that. He comes up, and obviously Daemon, if you remember, was commander of the City Watch, right? Commander of the Gold Cloaks, and a lot of them still have a lot of respect for him, right? A lot of them still have a lot of respect for Daemon, and not a lot for the people that are currently in charge. And he says, "Hey, heard you got no love for the High Towers." This guard says, "Yeah, fuck the High Towers." Now they get introduced to a rat catcher. Now that we saw the rat catcher a couple times in the different sequences. You see him a lot more than I actually showed you. I think I showed you once or twice. You see him in the background a couple different times throughout this episode. This rat catcher who has the dog, because there's rats all over the fucking place. Of course, you need to catch the rats. But Daemon's talking to him and says, "Hey, do you know a lot of these tunnels, a lot of, Maegor's secret passages and like things like that?" He says, "Yeah, I know them better than I know the shape of my own cock," which is a mushroom line, which is fantastic. And he tells these guys, "Hey, I want you to kill somebody for me."
Your friend. You're to find and slay the Prince Aemon Targaryen. He has silver hair and one eye. Should be easy enough to find.
I want you to kill Aemon Targaryen. Gives him some money, half now, half when you actually do it. And then he gets asked a question.
All right.
Now, this is the rat catcher. Henceforth, he's going to be known as Cheese, and the brute part of the City Watch. He's going to be known as Blood and Cheese.
What if we can't find him?
We've wasted precious days in this war of quills and
they cut away, right? So what if we can't find Aemond? This episode's titled A Son for a Son. After we go over this, I'm going to show you what actually happened in the books. We're going to compare it. I think what happened in the books is vastly better than what they gave us. But I want to let it play out first, and then we'll get into that after. But we don't know what Daemon said. Other than probably just he said something about a son for a son. Now, we see Criston Cole and Aemond who are planning, who are saying, we're basically like, listen, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we got this army from here? We could really take over the Riverlands. We could dominate. We could put an end to this war before it really even starts. They're obviously plotting without the knowledge of the king, without the knowledge of the hand, anything like that. And then Otto comes in. And they're also Aemond is kind of shit-talking Alicent as well. Aemond is kind of shit-talking Alicent about her lecturing everybody on trying to be conservative, trying to play it safe, blah, 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 when her scheming is what actually got us into this place in the first place. And I like that. I like that by Aemond, shit-talking his mom. And then Criston Cole, who's fucking his mother, is in a position to try to defend Alicent, which is just an interesting sequence. Now we see Otto and Aemond having a conversation, which I think this might be one of the first times we've ever seen that. Which I think this is one of the first times we've actually seen a straight up one-on-one conversation between Otto and Aemond. And Otto recognizes that you and Vhagar are the most powerful force we have. And you are the most powerful, not that we have, the most powerful force in the world. It's you and Vhagar. You're very important to what we're doing. But if you're plotting and scheming without the knowledge of the hand, without the knowledge of the king, I have a lot of questions. Probably shouldn't do that. We should keep everybody in the loop. And Aemond's like, listen, I'm loyal to my king and my house. Like, that's it. What else do you fucking want from me? Now, the dog. Now, the dog, this is the type of dog apparently that is used to like track animals and shit. That's why he has a dog. That's why the rat catcher has a dog. They go into the sewers. They're going into all these different places that, again, he's a rat catcher, so he should know some of these tunnels and where these things can get into. And he's leading them into the Red Keep. And we get a little bit of this funny conversation between Aegon and his buddies. They're just drinking after hours. He's just lounging on the Iron Throne. But you do get a little more, understanding that Aegon wants to be liked by the small folk. He's talking about this in this little conversation he has. So just a little more input into how Aegon wants people to feel. Now, Blood and Cheese are wandering through here. They have a little altercation because this rat catcher is not necessarily supposed to be upstairs. They might get caught if they go there. They haven't found Aemond yet. What should they really do? And Blood's like, listen, motherfucker, we got a fucking job to do. We're going to do this job. Like, bottom line, I'm going to do it with or without you, or I'm going to fucking kill you. Well, they eventually continue to make their way up, using some more passages. And they end up in the same room that Criston Cole and Aemond were just in. Let's see what do you have? They're stealing some gold and shit like that. He knows that he needs a head of Aemond in order to get paid by Daemon. So now they're like, well, we might as well look like we know what we're doing, actually take a trap out here, pretend like we're actually rat catchers. He goes into a room and runs into one of the attendants. Who doesn't seem to necessarily buy that he's in there to set rat traps, but whatever. Now, there's another conversation about why aren't the halls being patrolled? Why aren't the halls being guarded at this time? Because as we're about to see, they do run into someone else. This is Cheese, who has found Helena, who's found the queen. Obviously, Blood's like, hey, that's not a son. Well, no, but guess who does look like a son?
Son to you.
with thee.
Two children in their beds. Now, again, as we got introduced before in the very beginning, you have Prince Jaehaerys and you have Princess Rhaenyra. They're twins. One's a boy and one's a girl. They look exactly fucking alike. They look exactly identical young. In the same way we've heard other twins in this, world of ice and fire be described when they're younger, including people like Jaime and Cersei. They need to know who the boy is. So they ask Helaena, essentially saying, listen, if you fucking scream, if you do anything, we're just going to kill you and all of your children. So don't fucking scream. Don't do anything we don't ask you to do. We're here for a son. Tell us which one is the boy.
Which?
Now she tries. She says, listen, I have this necklace. It's worth a lot of money. Could you just take that and go? That's not a son. That ain't going to work. So she's sitting there being forced to identify her son with full knowledge that they're going to kill him. So she points to Jaehaerys. Blood does not believe her, but she sees something in her eyes, and I don't know exactly what this connection they have. Sees something in her eyes that says she is telling the truth. Now, again, the way they have shown us this character of Helaena, I don't think she's capable of telling a lie, if I'm being honest with you. The way that Helaena has been portrayed is so strange and awkward, and says these things that a lot of people just say you're fucking crazy. What she's speaking are truths, right? That's what she's saying. She's always telling the truth. And it might not make sense to anybody, but she's telling people what she sees all the time. She's never lying or trying to fool anybody. Remember when you were when they were having the dinner and she said all that embarrassing shit about Aegon. Now, again, whether you want to think it's coded as being a little bit autistic as part of this dreamer experience, whatever, right? She doesn't really have I don't think she has the capability in her to lie, which is why she says all those embarrassing things about Aegon, which are embarrassing for her too, in front of everybody. So I don't think she even has the capacity to lie because of her mental instability, whatever you want to call it.
No.
He knows somehow that she's telling the truth. So they both head over to Jaehaerys, the little boy, the heir to the Iron Throne for Aegon, to get his head. You could hear the muffled screams of a child and the sounds of cutting until they got far enough in where he stopped screaming. And then you continue to hear sounds. Of sawing through flesh and tissue and bones and all these things. And Helaena grabs her daughter and just runs as they're chopping his head off. She runs and runs and runs. Probably doesn't even really know where the fuck she is until she realizes I'm close to my mother's room. As it turns out, her mother's a little busy. Alicent, who claimed this is the last time, we can't do this again. Alicent, the Dowager Queen Alicent, is fucking Kristen Cole as Helaena walks in because her child's getting fucking murdered.
Helaena. What's happened?
They killed the boy.
And that is, that's the last shot. Fade to black. Fade to black. Now, that sequence might seem kind of horrifying to you if you're not familiar with the book. It is pretty horrifying. Let's be honest. Walking into a queen and asking her to identify her son with the full knowledge that they're going to fucking kill the boy. And you hear the sounds as a child is murdered and his head chopped off. However, this is like 5% as horrifying as it probably should have been. I'm going to pull it up if I can. In the book, and I've been hyping this up for a long ass time, all right? I've been hyping this up for a long ass time because I personally thought that this was going to be amazing. This is going to be something that's so dark. We had never seen it this bad in Game of Thrones ever before. And this is the reason why. Let me pop this up. This is what happens in the book.
When Rhaenyra heard of her son's death, she collapsed. She considered ending the war right then, until a raven arrived from her husband, Daemon. Her son would be avenged. Whispers slithered through the taverns and back alleys of Flea Bottom. 2 men were found. One was a former gold cloak, the other, a rat catcher in the Red Keep who knew all its secrets. History remembers them only as blood and cheese. One night, Queen Helaena entered the royal apartments with her daughter and 2 sons to put them to bed. Without warning, blood and cheese burst in, daggers in hand.
So there's already a little bit different because you have the twins, but you also have a younger son, Maelor. And I don't know if we're going to see him in this series. I don't think we've seen him yet. There was a little nod to him in in one of the opening sequences for last season with the bloodlines. But I'm not sure if we're actually going to get him in the show or not, which makes this scene a little bit different in general.
They told her that a debt was owed. A son for a son. Blood and cheese demanded she choose which son would be ripped from her forever. Queen Helaena pleaded with the men to kill her instead, but they refused. Weeping, Helaena named her younger son, Maelor. Perhaps she thought the boy was too young to understand. Perhaps because the older boy was King Aegon's firstborn son and heir. You hear that, little boy? She's whispered to the younger son. Your mama wants you dead. Then blood struck off the older boy's head with a single blow. When the guards burst.
So that's what I was expecting this to be. Looking at what 2 sons, hey, make your choice. Which one's going to die? Making Helaena point, which we did see her point and identify which one of her children was going to die. We did see that. But point to the younger one and have Cheese turn him and say, you hear that, boy? Your mama wants you dead. And then fucking kill the other one. So not only do you chop off the head of the son that you chose not to kill, but then the younger one, who knows how old he was, if he would have remembered shit, whatever. But to have the other one have that knowledge, for her to have that knowledge, Helaena, that she wanted him to die in that moment, is a pretty fucked up thing to do. A very fucked up thing to do. That's what I thought we were getting. I wish we would have got that. So for non-book readers, I feel like they probably saw that scene and it was disturbing. Like it probably was very disturbing to them, not on like a red wedding level, but very disturbing. I think it's child murder, right? Chopping the head off a child, making the queen point. But for me personally, and probably everyone who's read the book, it was very underwhelming, extremely underwhelming, which sucks because I think it's a missed opportunity. I think that they had an opportunity to do something. To do something that would have shocked the world. And this is not just, subverting expectations for shock factor. This is a legit thing from the source material. And you don't even have to show a child's head being chopped off. You could just have it all play out and have maybe in a shadow or just hear the sound and then hear the head roll or whatever. Like you could do it in a way that wasn't graphic, but it was still very disturbing. It's a disturbing thing. It's a disturbing action. I wish that's what we would have gotten. Instead, we get what we got. And for me, can't lie, very fucking disappointing. The show in general, or this episode in general, I actually really liked. I think they did a lot of good things. The reveal of Kristen and Allison fucking. There's been a lot of people asking questions. Why are the halls as deserted as they seem in King's Landing? 2 reasons. One, they're already light on Kingsguard because they had a couple people defect or quit. So they're light on them for one. They're also manning walls, which they would never normally have had to do at King's Landing. They're fucking constantly manning the walls with the Scorpions looking for dragons. We also know that Loras has locked up a bunch of people who weren't found to be very trustworthy, locked either in the dungeons, or he's torturing them, or he's fucking killed them already, whatever may have occurred. But the thing I find the most interesting is that this is the second time that harm has come to Alicent's children or grandchildren, and a certain Kristen Cole was nowhere to be found. Now, I thought, like, when I see him walk in and Kristen Cole and Alicent are fucking, I was thinking, well, Kristen Cole was probably assigned to guard Alicent. After hearing a couple people talk about this, I think it was Alt Shift X, I heard him theorize this, and I think this would be much more compelling. I think that Kristen Cole was supposed to be there standing watch for the kids. That's what I think. And instead of standing watch, he was fucking Alicent. And I think there's a chance that that's exactly what happened way back in the day on Driftmark, when Lucerys lost his eye, or when Aemond lost his eye because of what happened with Lucerys. Because guess who was supposed to be watching them that night? Kristen Cole. And we never really got an answer as to why he wasn't present, why he wasn't there when guarding them when he was supposed to be. I legit think that that's the case. And I think Alicent and Kristen Cole have been fucking for a long ass time. That's what I think. And so now this is the second time that harm has come to Alicent's either children or grandchildren. I think because she's fucking a Knight of the Kingsguard. That's what I think. Are there no other guards in the red? They don't have a lot of other Kingsguard. And like I said, right now, the vast majority of people are out manning the walls. And the only reason they were able to get into there was using secret passages. All the entrances to the Red Keep are being fucking well guarded. That's a spot where they wouldn't really think to have a lot of people other than probably a Kingsguard in the hallway. That would be like your normal setup for that. In this time of war, you've got the Red Keep locked the fuck down. Nobody's really supposed to know about these tunnels. Nobody really does know about these tunnels. And I think that's now I wish I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer like that, but that's what I feel makes sense right now. And I didn't think that the first time I watched it, I was just thinking that, well, Kristen was probably assigned to guard Alicent that night or whatever. But when you think about it now, you've only got 3 members of the Kingsguard there. And it's not like this is 3 weeks after, something's happened. We're still in like the week-ish, maybe 2 weeks following Viserys' death. That's what I think happened. But yes, that's the episode. Now, what's going to be the fallout from all of this? What did Daemon say to Cheese? Did he say specifically, if you can't find Aemon, just go kill another boy? Son for a son? We don't know. And I don't think we're ever going to find the answer to that. And guess what? Just like with Aemon, regardless of what the result is, Daemon is probably going to say that's what he ordered them to do. Daemon's not going to admit he made a mistake. Daemon will say that that's what I ordered him to do. The same way that Aemon probably refused to admit that what happened to Luke was a mistake. I enjoyed seeing the machinations between Aegon, Alicent, Otto, and Larys right there doing all of this other shit to manipulate. At the end of the day, what this is going to lead to is a wedge shoved between Aegon and Otto, and Aegon not wanting Otto to be involved anymore. Wanting somebody who's more willing to carry out the ferocity and intensity of this war the way he feels like it needs to happen. happens to be a couple people that are pretty close to him, like Aemond and Kristen Cole, who might be very willing to help with that. I don't know. I don't know. But that is it. That's it for the episode. Again, I really like the episode. I would put it on par with virtually the rest of season 1. Is it one of the best episodes we've seen? No, I wouldn't put it in the best episodes. I put it in the middle range. Certainly not the worst. It's not like an episode 9, but it's not an episode 8 either. It's a really solid start to the season, a way to reintroduce us to the characters, show us how they're changing a little bit in their new roles as queen, as king, the interactions they're having with the people that are beneath them, and how that's going to affect the rest of the season going forward. And I would imagine we're very close, because before this episode, there was an outside chance, and that's what Otto was hoping for. That's what Allison was hoping for. There was an outside chance that even despite the accidental death of Lucerys Velaryon, that this could be ended without real big-time bloodshed. Now, what do you think Aegon's reaction to this is going to be? What do you think the Green's reaction to this is going to be? This can't be justified, dragon on dragon, meeting in the battlefield, blah, blah, blah. This is an assassination of a little boy. This is the murder of a little boy in their house. Not the murder of Aemond, which if they had gone assassinated Aemond, even then, I think people would have been able to explain a little bit away. This is not that. This is the cold-blooded decapitation murder of an innocent little boy. Nothing can stop this war now. That's it. It's done. Dance of the Dragons. But there you have it. What do you guys, you guys have been talking about what you think the whole time. Let me read some of these super chats. I'm sorry I fell behind on these guys. Lewis C. There's so much to speculate and infer from subtle dialogue and body language. Even if this episode is a 7 out of 10, light years ahead of the competition. I hope you do one of these streams for every episode. I'll be here, no homo. That's my plan. I can't believe we had 600 people watching at one time, which is pretty crazy. Over here on this little channel. So I appreciate you guys. My plan is to do it every week on these Mondays. If you don't know, I'm doing reaction streams immediately after the show on Nerdrotic's channel. Myself and Mahler are doing those. Fringy joined us last week. I don't know if Fringy's going to join us next week. Not sure. And that's like 15 minutes after it's over. So you can always catch us there to see my immediate thoughts. These are obviously, I've watched the episode again. I've heard some other people react to it. I thought they had some great insight as well. Like the idea that Kristen should have been watching the kids and that he might have been supposed to do that all the way back years ago as well, that maybe he's been fucking Allison for a really long time. That I hadn't thought of that when I first watched it. So I'll be here, no homo. Thank you. And one of the things when I did my rewatch of season 1, one of the things I noticed was when you go back and you watch this season with full knowledge of things that happen, there are so many little conversations that have massive ramifications or payoffs later on. So we saw them do that in season 1. I would be willing to bet when I go back and watch this episode later, listen, if they keep the same quality writing, then I'm going to feel even better about this episode than I do now. Like I said, right now, I put it in the mid-tier in terms of how the House of the Dragons episodes that we've seen. I can't help, but it sucks that this show ended the way it did, which for some general viewers probably was shocking and disturbing. But for me, it was just a massive disappointment. Blood and Cheese was a massive disappointment. There's no other way to say it. And I don't really know why they chose to do it the way that they did. You'd have a lot of the same elements in terms of making Helena choose and Helena now feeling responsible for, the death of a fucking child. And you do see Helena, like, obviously she's panicking and she's running, but she is just like disassociating almost. She goes to go to her mother, where she feels safest, even if she's fucking Kristen Cole. Who knows what ramifications it might play that she walked in on them later. and she just disassociates. If you remember, the scene where Vaemon Targaryen gets his head cut off in Lord of the Tides episode, you see Helena react in an interesting way there. You basically see her just like cover her ears as like a lot of people are screaming and like disassociate. And I think that's kind of what they were going for with this. Not a freak out, not a meltdown, not a screaming fest. Now in the book, she kind of just goes crazy and just starts screaming. And she really is never the same after that. Kind of goes nuts and ends up killing herself. That's obviously not what we're going to see here necessarily. We saw a much different reaction from her to this and a much different set of circumstances. But now they're leaving open the question, is Maelor in this at all? If he's not in it, does Aegon have an heir? Does that mean he's going to want to fucking get another heir? What does Helena want to do? Shit like that. That's what they could be setting up. Also, if he doesn't have an heir, you know who the heir is? It's Aemond Targaryen, his brother. If Aegon doesn't have a male son, then it would be Aemond. So we'll see. Steel Leg of History, thanks for all the support and kindness. Be blessed. Hey, shout out to you, Steel Leg of History. Brockatron, haven't read Fire and Blood, and now that I know the line they left out, I still think the end was done well. Helena is weird and her reaction makes sense, but why weren't there other guards for the queen and heirs? Like I said, I feel like what I explained kind of makes sense. The Kristen Cole thing is my guess. You know, the Kristen Cole is supposed to be the one on patrol. Mikey, isn't the baby in the beginning of episode 1? The baby. They show Jaehaera. They show Jaehaera's sister, twin sister Jaehaera, in the beginning. That's Aegon comes and looks and sees that that's not the twin he's looking for, and then asks where Jaehaera is. These fucking names, man. I think the episode is 8 out of 10. Can't wait for more. Yeah, I think it was a really solid start. I think most people, general audiences, probably thought it was really good and thought the end was disturbing. I think book readers are disappointed. Shorty Short, and not disappointed about the whole episode, just the end sequence for the most part. Shorty Short for 10. Great stream. Happy late Father's Day. Thank you, Shorty Short. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Ryan, we have 2 in the ballots. Aegon the second, Aegon the third. Vote Aegon the third. Helena's okay with us voting against Rhaenyra's son, Aegon. They showed 2 babies. Where? We can play the scene. Because I replayed this scene last night, specifically looking. And it looked like what we saw is maybe a cradle, but no baby. Let me show you right here. So you see one, that little silver hair right there is a Targaryen child. That is Helena. Same child. Goes and looks and checks and realizes this is the girl. This is Jaehaera, because they're really hard to tell apart, which might come into play a little bit later. Where's Jaehaerys? But nowhere else in this room is there another child. He doesn't look at both babies like we're looking at it right now. There's only one kid in there. Now, could Maelor still be around? Yeah, he could. He certainly could be. And I think he should be. I don't know why he wouldn't be. Obviously, they might cut some characters out because of what they're doing. There's a lot of fucking characters in the book. Wouldn't surprise me they end up cutting one out. I guess she could be pregnant. Anything could be possible. But there's no other baby in here. Now, there is what looks like it could be a crib or something. You remember in the queen's hands another. Well, no, the queen is sewing right now. The queen is literally embroidering. This is the queen's hands. This looks like they're fucking folding laundry or something. She's got a basket, but yeah. Now, there are some really other cool things when you look at Helena's room. It's like covered in fucking drawings and shit like that from her visions, from her dreams, from what she's seen. There's some behind the scenes imagery of it that really like pointed out and it was very cool. But obviously, Helena being a dreamer, I think it's going to come into play much more than it came into play last. And she felt it coming. What is she scared of? She's scared of the fucking rats because it involves the rat catcher, who she knew would come and harm her children. She felt it, right? She knew it. And she was telling everybody the truth. Nobody wanted to listen. Was Prince Daeron cut? No appearance mention of him yet. Right now, I believe, I don't know if we've actually got a mention or not, but he's in Old Town. He should be in Old Town. Prince Daeron would be the fourth child of Alicent and Viserys. You've got Aegon, Helena, Aemond, and Daeron. Daeron is right now in Old Town. I don't know if he's a squire to the High Towers or whatever. I don't know exactly what he's fucking doing there, but he's in Old Town. I don't know if he's got a mention or technically an appearance yet or not. But anyway, that's it. That's the show. That's the episode. We've been streaming for an hour and 42 minutes about a show that was about an hour long. So we had a lot to say. But with that being said, we are going to end it. I got a lot of other stuff to do today. Alicent Hightower is a dirty fucking hypocrite. Listen, if you want to get fucked, I ain't going to fault you. Go out, get some dick, get your pussy licked, do all that stuff. But stop judging Rhaenyra for doing the same thing. That's all I'm saying. You're going to be all high and mighty, pretend like I'm above, I'm so moral, blah, blah, blah. Can't be doing shit like that. Anyway, that's what I might think. Because we do see Helena sewing and embroidering shit, I think that what we're seeing in the intro now, that tapestry that's being weaved, might be coming from the dreams and memories, the dragon dreams that Helena is having. I think that's possible. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'll be back next week, probably on Monday, to review House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 2. I'll talk to all y'all motherfuckers later. Peace.